pattern for this plushie can be found in my Etsy shop linked in the description below. Using the pattern as a guide, place the eye whites on top of the black felt eye pieces. Sew these in place either by hand or with a sewing machine. If you're using a sewing machine, go slow and take your time. These are very small pieces. Using the guides from the pattern and a marking tool, mark the placement for the face on the right side of one heart piece. Place the two felt eyes and felt mouth on top of the markings and pin them in place. Using a matching thread, edge stitch around each eye and mouth. You want to be on the very edge of the felt, but still catching it in the stitches. These pieces are really small, so you'll want to make sure you take your time so you get a nice look. If you're using the eyelash option, just make sure you go slow. You're going to sew up one side of each eyelash, and then you're going to turn the fabric in the machine, and then you're going to go down the other side. That will ensure these are fully attached. Now that the face is attached, you want to lay one body piece on top of the other with right sides together. Pin them in place. Now you're going to sew all the way around the plushie with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but you're going to leave a 1 to 2 inch gap on the bottom side. This will allow us to turn the plushie right side out. Clip into the seam allowance at the center point of the heart. You want to get close to the stitching, but do not clip through the stitching. If you get too close or you clip through your stitching, your plushie can develop a hole. Using that gap we left, turn the plushie right side out. After it's all turned right side out, you're going to want to reach into the gap with some sort of blunt object. A lot of people use chopsticks. I'm just using my turning tool, and you just want to push out all the curves from the inside of the plushie. This is also a really great time to check that you got all the seam allowance in your stitching and that there's no holes. Now it's time to stuff the plushie with polyfill. So how much polyfill you use will kind of determine the shape that the plushie takes. Sometimes you're going to need to smash it down or massage it a little bit to help encourage that polyfill to take a different shape. When the plushie is stuffed to your liking, tuck the seam allowance from the gap inside the plushie. Take a needle and matching thread and hand sew the gap closed using a ladder stitch. If you're not familiar with a ladder stitch, you just start with one small stitch on one side of the fabric, then move directly across to the other side. You're just going to keep going back and forth from one side to the other, kind of like making rungs on a ladder. That's why it's called a ladder stitch. Tie a few knots in the end of the thread, and then you're going to stick the needle through the seam, through to the other side of the plushie, and clip the thread off. This will ensure that the tail of the thread stays tucked inside the plushie for a more secure finish. Then that's it, you're all done! Your plushie is ready to be played with, squished, and loved on. Thank you so much for following along on this pattern. If you enjoyed this pattern, please feel free to take a look at some of my others in my Etsy shop. The link is in the description. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.